Namaskar and welcome to Sansad Television. I am Vishal Dahiya and you're watching our show Perspective, where we bring you detailed analysis of key national and international issues. Today we're going to talk about Israel's election result. In fact, Israel's former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is on the road, or rather brink, of a dramatic comeback after partial election results showed he was on course to win a majority in parliament with the far right's help. With around 93% of the votes counted so far, Mr Netanyahu's bloc is all set to win 65 out of the 120 seats, which is way ahead of the majority mark, following the year-long experiment of a mixed right, centre, left Arab coalition. The results of the election held on 1st of November this year mark a decided shift to the right in Israel politics. According to the partial results, Netanyahu's Likud stands to be the biggest party with 32 seats, commanding a majority with the support of other nationalist and religious parties. Yesh Atid of outgoing Prime Minister Yair Lapid, which led the coalition which brought down Mr Netanyahu in the elections last year, is projected to win just 24 seats. In today's show, we'll discuss and analyze all aspects of these election results and their impact in Israel, in the region, and its relations with other countries as well. And for more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of experts. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with, we're joined by former Mr Vijendra Gupta, who is here with us. Welcome, Mr Gupta. We also have with us Dr. Shriram Cholia, foreign affairs expert, and Ms Aditi Bhaduri is also joining us, founding editor of International Affairs Review. Welcome, Aditi, to you as well. I'll begin with you, Aditi, only, and we'd like to take a stock before we, go deeper into the details as to what is the current situation in terms of the election results, because as we understand, it takes a bit of a time for the final results to be announced in Israel, and also given the fact that this is the fifth election, if I'm not wrong, in the last 4 years, there seems to be a lot of lot of eyeballs on these results.
Yes, well, there are some technical issues involved here, which I would like to focus on. First and foremost is that the current coalition, which will be the incumbent one, was one of the first governments in quite a few years not to have the participation of any religious party. And there is a lot of religious cohesion, even though it's not that all the Israelis are religious people, religious-minded, but they became unpopular because they had come. One of the promises had been to make some changes in the kashrut laws, which of course the religious people, the religious Orthodox constituency was not very happy about. Mm-hmm. The other aspect is a technical one, because till now, as the election results go, Netanyahu's party has won like 50% of the votes, which means 50% they have not won. But the law of 2014, which made it mandatory for any candidate or any party to get, 3.25% of the votes, who is eligible to enter the Knesset. And therefore, you had a lot of parties which, like Meretz, like Labour, like the Israeli, the Arab party, Balad, they have won like 2 votes, 3 votes, but not 3.2, percentage or seats, but not 3.25. So they are automatically disqualified, and their seats would be going over to this coalition, to the Likud, Netanyahu's Likud coalition, which have combined the numbers. Okay. So if we have a divided opposition also, so have they, like Meretz and Labour, which are like the left of center parties, if they had combined, they might have been able to get in, because I think till now they have got 3 and 4 seats percentage respectively, which combined together 7 would have got them entry into the Knesset. But that has not happened because they did not join forces. They were individually, they have not qualified as yet. So these are a number of factors.
Mhm.
Also, the people are fed up, and Netanyahu's the Likud coalition is more promising. It's in the sense that it is more cohesive. So I guess Israelis turned out in larger numbers,
Mhm.
and there you have it. Yeah.
Okay. Let me bring in Ambassador Gupta here as well. Ambassador Gupta, that's very significant. All those technicalities apart, and they play a very important role in terms of deciding who will finally have the majority. But fifth election in 4 years, but still there didn't seem to be any election fatigue. A large voter turnout. And a complete shift back to the rightist regime there. Former Prime Minister Netanyahu will be back in power. So, can this be considered as a sort of a stable political regime now again back in Israel, or this coalition politics still have some more twists and turns?
Well, a very decisive mandate voting by the electorate. What the other panelist was referring to, the threshold of 3.5%. When I opened the Indian Embassy in Israel in '92, at that time the threshold was much lower, which meant that the smaller parties could still make entry into the parliament. Today, unless a party secures 3.5%, they will not have any representation. So all their votes are distributed amongst those parties which have secured more than 3.5%. So I think but you must remember that this is a proportionate representation. If a party gets 35% votes, it will get 35 or 37 or 38% seats, not absolute majority. So coalition is a way of life in Israel. And every government that you look at has had to form coalition with other parties. Decisive shift because people in Israel have voted for the far right combination, as opposed to the government which was in office earlier, the centrist leftist combination. Very significant that there was also an Arab party component in the coalition government, which was for the first time that an Arab party had. And Israeli Arabs constitute about 15 to 20% of the country's population. And it was ironic that they were completely ruled out of the government dispensation. So I think a very decisive shift. People have, for whatever reason, quite frankly, I'm a little bit disappointed because I think Israel needs peace. And peace can only be secured if the Palestinians are also given a fair dispensation.
Okay.
At the time when the Middle East peace process was going on, Israeli government led by Rabin and Shimon Peres, they decided that Palestinians have to be given a separate land. And I think by and large people in Israel agreed that that was the only way forward for the peace.
Okay.
Now, when the Israeli electorate votes for this kind of dispensation, they are not only voting for the hardline politics, but they also are voting for peace, security, because they are very concerned about the security. The bombs being hurled on the road, on the streets. So I think something to be said about how people have got a fatigue with regard to seeing the spiraling violence all around. And hopefully the new government, even if it is far-right combination, will be able to see the logical end to the conflict and give Palestinians a fair and respectable solution.
That will be a very important aspect to be seen in the days ahead when former Prime Minister Netanyahu takes reins of the power there. But Dr. Cholia, in your views, how do you analyze this shift which we are looking at and sort of a decisive mandate after 4 long years when we saw 5 elections, none of the coalitions able to form the government, none of the governments able to last for more than a year?
Yeah, Vishal, I think people do get tired of these repeated cycles of elections and the instability. So Netanyahu read the pulse. He's actually a master strategist when it comes to appealing to his core base, and the turnout that he ensured, both for Likud and the extended right coalition, actually won them this election. They had struggled in the past to pass the magic number of 60, but they could do it because they could mobilize their core constituencies. So ideological purity and clarity in times of increasing insecurity, as Ambassador was saying, the violence in the West Bank and in Jerusalem has been growing like anything, and there is also the security outlook of Israel is always about how to counter Iran and Iranian influence in the region. And because the Americans have been talking to the Iranians and trying to bring them back to the table for the nuclear deal and all that, the Israelis are very insecure. And whenever there's insecurity, nobody like Netanyahu to exploit that, to his political advantage. So I think the center left and the Arab parties and the incumbent government could not really answer to those insecurities of the Israeli people. Okay. There's also the law and order issue. There were major ethnic riots, some time ago between Israeli Arabs and Israeli Jews. So I think that polarization is extreme, and it's in that kind of moment when a wily politician like Netanyahu, who is probably, if a cat has 9 lives, then Netanyahu has 10 lives. He keeps making comebacks. And the way he can also hold the flock together, because he's got a coalition too, a very large group, which often disagree among each other. They're a divided lot. But still, I think, and he's got a corruption case against him. But nonetheless, one thing we have to, give credit where it's due is that ultra-nationalist appeal in a time of crisis. Netanyahu could put that together, message it strategically, and manage to get the votes in.
Okay. Aditi, we're talking about what was the core issue in these elections. And as both Ambassador Gupta and Dr. Chaulia are referring to, looks like the issue of security and as Dr. Chaulia put it, insecurity perhaps in terms of the regional issues as well. Do you also agree that these were the main core issues, or was it something else perhaps, which might have swayed this election in Netanyahu's favor?
No, I do agree that the security is a huge, it's a huge concern for all Israelis. And to be fair to Netanyahu, he did get the Abraham Accords on board, in where they normalized relations with the UAE, with Bahrain, with Morocco, with Sudan, with a whole host of countries, Muslim countries, Arab countries. So, thereby taking off almost the Palestinian issue from the agenda, or at least, ensuring that they have, more Arab support for Israel. So this is, of course, undoubtedly. But I would like to go back to what I said earlier. Second is the voter fatigue. So we had 5 elections, this is the 5th one. So there was a huge voter turnout, which also, because of all these technical issues of, 3.5% and so and so, they ensured that Likud and its coalition could win the election so decisively. They said it's a fractured opposition, and of course the Likud coalition is very strong. So they have like 60, more than 60 plus majority. So it's been like a cakewalk for them. So Netanyahu is just lucky, as Professor Chaulia said. If a cat has 9 lives, he's got 10. So there you are. So these are, but yes, security and this, a cohesive coalition. Yeah.
Okay. Security, cohesive coalition, and people's desire to see political stability in the country. Perhaps the voters of Israel didn't want to go ahead for another election in perhaps a few months or a year's time now. And Mr. Gupta, let's shift focus a little bit towards the impact which we might see from our perspective, from India's perspective. Now, Israel and India share a wonderful partnership. You've been there, as you pointed out earlier, you opened India's embassy there in '92, and from there onwards, there has been a lot of growth in bilateral relations. Incidentally, both, Benjamin Netanyahu, who has won these elections, and Indian Prime Minister, they also share some sort of personal rapport, as we've seen in the past. How do you see Netanyahu's return, vis-a-vis India-Israel ties, and the kind of takeaways which might be here for both the sides, Israel as well as India?
Well, for us, it really doesn't make much of a difference. You are right that there has been very good personal chemistry between Netanyahu and our Prime Minister. So I think that makes some difference and facilitates interaction. But by and large, India and Israel have remained on very friendly wicket. As long as I can remember, in fact, in '92, there was a huge sigh of relief. And the government may have delayed this decision to open the established diplomatic relations. But of course, people in India, welcomed it wholeheartedly. And the number of high-level visits, not so much from the central government, but initially the central government was a little bit reticent. And it is also said that they established diplomatic relations because of certain pressure, because India wanted to be part of the Middle East peace process. But when you look at the people, the state governments, everybody made a beeline. So the point that I'm making is that it would not have made any difference at all. We had extremely good relations with Netanyahu when he was in power, and we continue to have good relations with the next Prime Minister, the next two Prime Ministers, the center-left government which was there, and with Netanyahu there. So, we have a non-partisan, bipartisan relationship with the governments.
Okay.
Now, I think these elections are the internal matter of how Israelis would seek to resolve their own condition and what are the issues with them. You're right, very high voter turnout amongst the Jewish people, which meant that they were voting very decisively for stability.
Okay.
For somebody who has the courage and who has the gumption to deal with the insecurity, law and order issue.
Okay.
Another factor which has led to what result that we have seen is very low voter turnout amongst the Israeli Arabs. And this is not something that happened just by itself. It was long anticipated. Even long before the elections, people were anticipating that. And why has that happened? Because of, the build-up of apathy and indifference.
Okay.
The Israeli Arabs think that whatever legislators they send to the parliament, they are not able to do anything at all.
Okay.
They have lost trust in their own leaders. So I think Israeli society is going through a churning, particularly Israeli Arabs. And how it will unravel, how the Israeli Arabs will define their identity in that country. After all, it's a very large number. In fact, at one point in time, it was felt that of all the Israeli Arabs were to come together, they constitute 15, 17, 18%, and they would constitute a very solid bloc. But they have never been united.
Okay.
So I think these are the factors.
Okay. Dr. Chaulia, when we're talking about relations with India, as Mr. Gupta also pointed out, we've shared a very wonderful relation. But in terms of takeaways, one, the personal rapport, of course, that will have some impact. Two is the political stability in any country does lead to a bit more, focused approach on relations with other nations. And that is where Israel-India cooperation in various sectors might also get a fillip here. Are we looking at that aspect?
Yeah, if we are talking of two democracies, stability and continuity of a regime does help to advance relationships rather than repeated cycles and ruptures and turnovers of power. So, Naftali Bennett was supposed to, the Prime Minister before Yair Lapid was supposed to visit India, and even that could not happen. So, if you are, and frankly, these coalition governments which are very unwieldy, very narrowly ruling with the one seat majority in the Knesset and all that, they were always looking out for survival. They could not really take longer term decisions and about broader strategic decisions. So of course, at the level of counter-terrorism and intelligence sharing and defense cooperation, agriculture, India, Israel, we are doing a lot. But if Netanyahu brings together a stable coalition, and he's 73 now, he will want to be looking for his legacy also. He's already completed 10 years in power. This could be his last stint. He will want to leave a mark. He wants to normalize Israel worldwide. He wants more countries to recognize Israel and to break the taboo of the past, where there were many who considered Israel's existence as illegitimate. So he will continue to look for Asia, especially India and to a lesser extent China, to be able to make the point that Israel is legitimate, fully accepted, and the right to existence of the state of Israel, which is a central point for Netanyahu and for most Israelis in the right, that cannot be challenged. So I think he will look to advance relationships. You mentioned the bromance between Prime Ministers Modi and Bibi Netanyahu. So I think those things will help. And of course, we are also supporters of a two-state solution and for the Palestinians, and we continue to believe in that. But if that has been completely crushed, as Ambassador was saying, then the instability may, domestically, even if Israel has a single government running, the region will be in flames,
Okay.
And if the Israel-Iran relationship also gets to a point of all-out proxy war, they already have a proxy war in the whole region, then again, it will have negative repercussions for India, because Iran is also important for us.
Indeed.
So we will want to balance these things, and I think Prime Minister has conveyed to the Israelis many times that, look, our perspective here and from looking from South Asia and our regional issues can vary from what is happening in West Asia. So we agree to disagree. But overall, I think if a stable and long-lasting government comes to Israel, I think we will prefer that. So we have continued negotiation channels with the same ministers, the same officials, rather than this revolving door situation that has caused so much chaos.
Okay. A quick concluding comment from you, Aditi, before we wrap this up, vis-a-vis the Israel-India relations and the impact of these election results, the return of Bibi Netanyahu.
Yeah, sure. As the relations are so good that it doesn't really matter whichever government is in power. But yes, the personal chemistry between Prime Minister Modi and Netanyahu does matter, and that is why we had these first visits. So now that line has been crossed. We will just keep seeing that better India-Israel relations. One thing is possibly it could be a positive moment, is that Netanyahu also has a very good chemistry with the Russian President Putin, So Israel till now has taken a more pro-Ukrainian position, and maybe with Netanyahu back in power, it might, I don't know, it might play a more
significant role
maybe
out there.
More mediator kind of a role, with with not being so pro-Ukraine and possibly have some,
Okay, there it is. Thank you so much, Aditi, and Mr. Gupta, and Dr. Cholia as well for sharing your views and insight with us and our viewers. As our experts were pointing out, the analysis of Israel's latest elections, fifth in the last 4 years, finally looks like the country is on the road to political stability. Return of Benjamin Netanyahu as Prime Minister with majority in the parliament out there for his coalition. We'll keep a close watch on all the developments out there in Israel and elsewhere in the world also, and keep on bringing you detailed analysis. Till then, keep watching Sansad Television. Thank you.